Is Masataka Yoshida destined to be traded this offseason? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and believe it or not, there are only 5 games left of the 2024 season. The Boston Red Sox 2025 offseason is right on the horizon, and this is a pretty big offseason for this team. With the Red Sox top prospects breaking their way into Major League Baseball very soon, they're going to have some really big decisions to make, and one of the players that are smack dab in the middle of those big decisions is Masataka Yoshida, which could mean we've seen the end of Masa in a Red Sox uniform. So that's exactly what we are talking about in today's video. We're taking a look at the possibility of the Red Sox trading Masa, the pros and cons, and what that could mean for this Red Sox team. But before we get into that, just a heads up, our last regular season watch party is tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time on this channel. This is the last one publicly for the 2024 season. So if you haven't been to one yet, this is your last opportunity to do so. It's going to be a ton of fun. A big thank you to everyone who showed up this season. So we're going to have a good time. Again, that is going to be tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time on this channel. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. For some reason, Masataka Yoshida lately has become a bit of a polarizing player for Red Sox fans. People either really love the guy or people really hate the guy. There's really no in between, and I don't really understand that because it's pretty hard to deny how productive Masa's been for the Red Sox this year. He's been a well above average player, at least when he's been on the field, because through 105 games so far this year, Masa has a 286 average with a 355 on base percentage and a 422 slug, good for a 115 OPS plus, about 15% above league average production. That is a really solid everyday player, especially when you take into consideration the fact that he doesn't strike out. This is a dude who makes a ton of contact. In fact, he's in the 96th percentile in strikeout rate amongst hitters in Major League Baseball. What this means is only 4% of hitters strike out less than Masataka Yoshida does. It also means he's striking out about 10% less than the average player in Major League Baseball. I think the biggest problem people have with Masataka Yoshida is simply the fact that he's not a huge slugging player, right? He's not a guy who has the potential to hit 40, 45 home runs, which is kind of a fair assessment from Red Sox fans because of who they've had in this DH position, at least from a full-time perspective over the last couple of years. David Ortiz and JD Martinez were certainly super sluggers when it came to that DH position, but that doesn't entirely mean that Masataka Yoshida needs to be a power hitter to be a successful DH, especially when you take into consideration that you're getting power sources from other places in this lineup. Coming into next year, Rafael Devers, Tristan Casas, Roman Anthony, who had the highest exit velocity of any level in the minor leagues or major leagues in the Red Sox system last year, Trevor Story and others are going to be in this lineup that can provide that type of major power that you're looking for out of your DH position. There is still a ton of benefit to having a guy like Masataka Yoshida who makes a ton of contact and who continuously gets on base. It sets up those big guys. It helps those big guys score runs. It allows them to get on base and get driven in. That's a big part of what the Red Sox are trying to do, especially when you take into consideration the fact that the Red Sox have the 3rd most strikeouts overall this season in Major League Baseball. It's even higher when you just look at the second half, and they have the 7th most home runs in Major League Baseball this year, right? They're still hitting a ton of home runs even with Masataka Yoshida in that DH position, but having him in here and allowing a spot in this lineup that isn't dedicated to a guy who has a below average strikeout rate is really important. I think that's a big reason why I believe that Masataka Yoshida is a productive player for this Red Sox team. So the question becomes, if he's this productive, why would the Red Sox think about trading him? And the simple answer is just versatility. The more in-depth answer is because Masataka Yoshida simply cannot play the field, right? Or I guess he can play the field. The Boston Red Sox just don't feel comfortable doing that, considering the fact that he has not played a single inning in the outfield this season, despite having numerous opportunities. What this means is that going forward for the Red Sox, if they do want his bat in this lineup, it's going to have to come out of that DH position, which really sort of hamstrings that position in terms of what it could mean for this team. Because if they were to trade away Masataka Yoshida, all of a sudden that DH position becomes one of the more versatile positions on your team. If you don't immediately fill it with somebody else, it allows you to call up a guy like Roman Anthony and make him a fourth outfielder without actually having to make him a fourth outfielder. You can now utilize everyone in that outfield without having to make a massive, crazy trade just simply to make room. You can have Duran, Cedon, and Wilyer in the outfield while also cycling them in and out of that DH spot with Roman Anthony, getting all of them everyday regular at-bats and not having to trade any of them away. The other possibility here is that you could move Rafael Devers into a more DH role. Maybe he spends half the season at DH, and a guy like Christian Campbell or Marcelo Meyer can come up and man that third base position the other half of the year while also getting everyday at-bats. When we're looking at it, the DH position could become one of the Red Sox biggest assets to fitting in a lot of these star-studded prospects or a lot of these guys who really should be on this team into the everyday lineup without having to move any of them. And to me, that's the biggest reason why the Boston Red Sox should consider trading Masataka Yoshida, not because of Masataka the player, but because of Masataka the roster spot. He simply does not offer enough versatility for what the Red Sox are going to need to do coming into the 2025 season. And it's a really tough conversation because you're losing that production from that spot, but you're also gaining another spot to fill with some of these really big guys. And to be honest with you, that is definitely the biggest reason to trade Masataka Yoshida, because it certainly isn't his value on the open market, which actually may be the biggest reason why not to trade him. But before we get into that, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for taking a second and doing so. I apologize for the interruption. Let's get back to the video. When we're looking at concentrating Masataka Yoshida, the big one that stands out is the fact that he's owed $18 million a year for the next 3 years. That is a whole lot of capital that another team is going to have to take on if they want to bring in Masataka Yoshida. Couple that with the fact that the Red Sox can't really go out onto the open market and market this guy as an outfielder. They're going to have to market him as a DH. All of a sudden, it becomes a bit tricky to move Masataka Yoshida with that contract attached, which gives the Red Sox 3 separate options on how they want to approach this. The first would be to just simply get rid of him. Try and get as much as you possibly can, but not really expect a whole lot in return. Just simply what they call a salary dump trade, which is essentially the Red Sox sending him to, say, Seattle Mariners and getting a low A lottery ticket type pitching prospect in return, right? A number 60 in the Seattle Mariners system. A guy who, hey, maybe he can be something. He probably isn't going to be something, but hey, you got rid of the contract. Now you can go and you can get other players and you can open up that DH spot. The second one would be, instead of trying to get rid of his entire salary, you get rid of a portion of it. All of a sudden, Masataka Yoshida for $18 million a year looks a whole lot worse than Masataka Yoshida for $10 million a year. And the Red Sox could get something of a bit more in value in return for Masataka Yoshida's services. The problem with that is if they were to take on, let's say, $8 million a year for the next 3 years, you're talking about $24 million total for Masataka Yoshida to play somewhere else, and the return still isn't going to be all that great. It certainly would be better than what you'd be getting if you were to give up his entire salary, but it certainly wouldn't be a superstar splash trade that the Red Sox may possibly need. And the third possibility here is that the Red Sox do find a way to make this valuable. They attach somebody who is worth a whole lot more than Masataka Yoshida is in the other direction, right? They attach a top 5 prospect. They attach a big name young player on the Boston Red Sox, and they try and get somebody that way. And that certainly would definitely improve the value of Masataka Yoshida on the open market. The problem with that is you're completely decimating the value of another guy. A prime example of what this trade may look like, and I'm certainly not trying to make the comparison talent-wise, just trying to give you guys an example of a trade like that, would be when they attached David Price's contract to Mookie Betts, right? It drastically drove down the value of Mookie Betts, but it did increase the value of David Price. Something along that line could be an option for the Red Sox going forward. So they're a little bit hamstrung when it comes to how they're going to move him on the open market. They really only have a couple of options here, and two of them are simply to eat as much money as humanly possible and not get a whole lot back. If the Red Sox are looking for value attached to Masataka Yoshida, I just don't really think it's there this offseason. The other big con, in my opinion, of getting rid of Masa, outside of the fact that he's not going to be easy to move, and he does provide a pretty big service for the Red Sox in terms of his plate approach, is the fact that he is a Japanese player. Over these next couple of years, and Major League Baseball is going to get an influx of really talented Japanese players. They're going to get guys who could completely change the face of your franchise. They're going to get guys who are incredibly talented MVP caliber players into this league. The first question they are going to ask the Red Sox when they are bidding for these players, if they trade Masataka Yoshida, is going to be, why would I sign with you guys over somebody else? If you don't love the production that you're getting, you're just going to move me in 2 years, and all of a sudden the team and the city that I left my hometown for, that I left my league for, all of a sudden is completely different than what I signed up for. That's going to put the Red Sox at a pretty immediate disadvantage in a lot of these conversations, and that might be a really big problem over these next couple of years, just simply due to the fact that there is going to be a whole lot of talent coming from Japan over these next couple of years, and these guys are going to absolutely explode on the major league scene. If the Red Sox can't take advantage of that, yeah, they're going to be at a disadvantage overall when it comes to roster construction. So when you're looking at it, there are definitely some really big pros, but also some really big cons to trading Masataka Yoshida. In my opinion, when we're looking at whether or not the Red Sox are going to trade him, I think there's a pretty good possibility they do. I think when you take a look at the pros and cons for the Red Sox, the roster construction thing really stands out. It allows them to do things that just simply are not possible at this moment, and it allows them to fit more players on this roster than ever before, and I think that's going to be a really big plus for the Boston Red Sox with who they have coming up through the minor leagues and what they want to do in terms of improvements on this roster in the open market. It just gives them options that they just simply do not know are there at this moment. And to me, that's why I think the Red Sox will end up trading Masataka Yoshida. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. I would assume at some point they're just going to have to suck it up and salary dump his contract to somebody else. And it's a big risk to take, but I do think it does make some sense for this Red Sox team. And it's not that I want Masataka Yoshida to go. I really like Masa, and I do think he could be a valuable player for what the Red Sox are trying to build over these next couple of years, especially when it comes to sort of leading by example for these young players in the batter's box with his approach at the plate. But at the same time, too, anyone the Red Sox look at this offseason in terms of who they're going to move to make room on this roster is going to have really big pros and really big cons, and it's up to the Red Sox to decide who has the least amount of cons and who's the player that we are okay with dealing with those cons as we move forward throughout the next couple of years. And in my opinion, Masa smack dab in the middle of that, unfortunately for Masataka Yoshida, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? Do you think there's a chance that the Red Sox trade Masa? Do you think that the Red Sox are going to try and hold on to him? What would you do if you were in charge of this Red Sox team? Would you trade him? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Again, if you're new here, we talk Sox almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton. It's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you want to listen instead of watch these episodes, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. I will see you one last time for a watch party tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and of course, in the Red Seats.